I worked in Ireland for 15, 16 years for the same company there, selling the instruments, consumables, software for waters. That was when the Irish market was growing dramatically. There was big investment in biopharma in Ireland.
Right.
So all of our customers, Pfizer's, GSK, Eli Lilly, Wyeth, Merck Sharp and Dohme, all these guys were all, setting up shop in Ireland, expanding, manufacturing pharmaceuticals. And we were serving those guys over that period.
The Guardian Irish Business Podcast is a tour around the entrepreneurial industry here in Dublin and across the country. We have the great privilege here at Guardian of working with some of the most inspiring and influential small businesses in Ireland and the people that run them, who are forming and shaping the future of many different sectors of the Irish economy. I thought it would be interesting to chat to and learn from these people, which we do every day, but memorialise it in a podcast which could then be shared with our friends and clients and you, the listener. Our next guest is a man who spent his entire career in the biopharma sector as managing director and then formed his own company, which he then successfully sold in 2020, despite being in the depths of COVID. Ladies and gentlemen, Andy Pepper. Andy, what brought you to Ireland? Because I know it wasn't for love. Angela is a Scouser also, your wife?
No, not true, Colin.
Okay.
Born in the Rotunda. Family lived in Rathbeal and Swords.
Right.
But she was, I suppose, schooled and spent most of her childhood and early career in Liverpool. So we met in Liverpool.
Okay.
Married in Liverpool. And then we moved to Dublin in 1990.
Right. Long time ago.
Yep.
Right. Fair. And you're there since.
Yep.
Good. You haven't lost the accent anyway. So Andy, take us back to the start. What was your first job in the industry?
Okay, so as a young guy, Colin, was an apprentice lab technician, where I was working 4 days a week, studying 1 day a week to get a degree in chemistry. And I spent 5 years doing that. And at the end of the 5 years, got the degree. And that's really where I started my career into kind of science and chromatography. So I spent the last year of that kind of apprenticeship studying chromatography and getting the expertise in around chromatography.
Break it to me. What's chromatography?
So chromatography, if you did any basic chemistry in school, I suppose it's a separation science. So you have a mixture of materials, and chromatography separates those materials into individual components. And then you use instruments, software, technology to identify them, how much of them is there. So in our space, the pharmaceutical is a mixture of chemical compounds. We help them separate them, identify them, quantify them. And that's a core part of our business.
So give me a very brief synopsis of your career then. So you were in a lab.
Yep.
When did you leave a lab and what attracted you?
Yeah, so I was running all the instrumentation in the lab in the last year, and one of the big manufacturers of the instruments had a job opportunity. I was working closely with them. They came to me, approached me and said, look, we need a sales guy in the northwest of the UK. Are you interested? They took me in, and that was my step from the lab, the bench, as we call it, out to the commercial world. Got a job, company car.
What type of age were you then?
I would have been 22 or 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I presume financially that was a good move, leaving a lab type environment?
Yeah, well, I suppose the attraction then was the company car and, sales bonuses and this kind of stuff and getting to travel around.
And dare I ask, how did you get to Ireland then? What was the move that brought you to Ireland?
Yeah, so that manufacturer was a company called Waters. They made the instrumentation. They were the market leaders. They had a distributor in the Irish market, and they asked me to cover Ireland as part of my territory. So I was supporting the Irish distributor as well as working in the northwest of the UK.
Right.
And then that Irish distributor, their business was going gangbusters in the early 90s. Okay. They were growing rapidly. They needed somebody. They knew the wife was Irish. They knew we used to come over to Ireland, and there was a job offer there.
Right. Was Angela working in the industry at the time herself? Or?
Yeah, she was working. Yeah, she was working for Pepsi Cola actually in the UK.
Okay, so there was a job opportunity here, perhaps, or Pepsi Cola were strong in Ireland too.
There wasn't. We came over and we just took the chance, sold up and moved. Yeah.
Coming to Ireland from the UK, what did you find the major differences were?
The major difference, well, driving around the country was a challenge. Back in the 90s, driving from Dublin to Cork was, or Kinsale, to get to Eli Lilly in Kinsale was 4.5, 5 hours. So, you know, if you're getting your first sales call in at 9:30, you were up early and on the road to get down there. And so the traveling the roads, we didn't have all the motorways. It was all the end roads. So I put a lot of miles on the car. I had a Mazda 66 diesel column. You remember?
Which was a very nice car at the time.
I used to drive, 50, 60,000 miles a year, getting around the country in every county in Ireland. The main was, Galway, Limerick, Cork, Waterford, Dublin. That was the kind of ring. There wasn't too much in the northwest then, but that was the loop we used to do.
Right. And Andy, in sales, and I know it's a specialised sector you were in, the biopharma sector, but did you find the lack of your social network, having not gone to school or college in Ireland, did that affect you, or how did you get over that?
Yeah, it didn't affect me, but it was certainly. But the Irish, they're friendly. They take it in. They realise this guy is always from Liverpool, young guy. Obviously likable, easy. I knew my stuff, so I wasn't coming in trying to, show off or anything. I knew my stuff. I knew I was solid in the technique and the products and the competition. The company I worked for, though, was already in the market since the 80s, so their brand, the recognition, the door was there when I was ringing and knocking on the doors. I'm from AGB. Boom, they let you in because they understood the company. They knew the company, so the doors were open.
Right, you just had to push it a little bit
just
more.
Push a bit harder, and
very good. Okay, so it was a good brand name there, and recognised and reputable, so it certainly helped. Yeah, just particularly interested as regards that, because going back 30 years, there weren't an awful lot of English people in Ireland, and to come over, big move, say goodbye to your family and your social network there. So.
Yeah, no, it was good. It was great. It was great to be traveling around and in the socially in the evening times, the hotels and golf or wherever you're into, surfing, sailing, you could do whatever you like.
And from Waters then, what was the next move?
Well, I worked in Ireland for 15, 16 years for the same company there, selling the instruments, consumables, software for Waters. That was when the Irish market was growing dramatically. There was big investment in biopharma in Ireland. Right. So all of our customers, Pfizer's, GSK, Eli Lilly, Wyeth, Merck Sharp and Dohme, all these guys were all, setting up shop in Ireland, expanding, manufacturing pharmaceuticals. And we were serving those guys over that period.
It's great to hear you speak of such multinational, large companies 30 years ago, and you were selling to them. They were in Ireland that long ago, and it's testimony to the...
Well, Pfizer's been in Ireland, I think, since the 70s down in Ringaskiddy. They've been manufacturing there, one of the early guys. Right. Yeah.
Why was the industry taken off in Ireland at that time in particular?
Yeah, so all of the big, top 15 biopharma manufacturers were all moving into Ireland. It was one thing, call them tax incentives, so they're all getting the
R&D tax credits.
Well, R&D tax credits. The land was probably cheap for them to come and set up. Sure. They could get well qualified scientists out of all of the third level universities around the country. Speak English. They were generally coming from the US, so the US guys were happy to take in the Irish guys for employment.
I suppose there's also good incentives with Enterprise Ireland and indeed with the IDA providing advanced factories. And
helping them get in, corporation tax, I think that it was as low as 10% maybe. Correct. In the 90s, so. It's
easy to forget that the Irish government put in place 30, 40 years ago some really good incentives and targeted the pharma sector. And looking back now, it's been hugely successful. Yeah.
And all the associated, all of the land, the builders, all these plants that got built are all high tech, state of the art. They're not just a barn. They were, they are state of the art.
Right.
Purification, fermentation, everything.
Very good.
Yeah.
Excellent. So then, moving on to which was the most recent part. What was the genesis of Apex Scientific?
Yeah, so the company that I worked for in Ireland had grown to quite a large size, tens of millions, and the owners were getting to retirement age, ready to kind of move on. They were being approached by one of the large kind of global lab suppliers. They needed to get a footprint in Ireland. When they see the biopharma industry growing so large, and they hadn't got a presence, they needed a presence. So they came along, and I helped these guys, I suppose, position the company and sell the company into one of these big global lab supply manufacturers. Right. So that then led to a number of the specialist chromatography suppliers getting a bit uncomfortable. They thought, look, we don't want to get consumed into a large global lab supply company. We're a niche player.
Right.
We need to stay in this niche lane and make sure that we get the focus of our products and not lose focus, because that's what often happens with specialist high-tech products with big global lab suppliers.
Just swallowed up.
They swallow it up. They lose the focus. They're more into the stack them high, sell them cheap approach rather than specialist.
Okay.
So those guys said, look, we're not quite comfortable with it. And that's when a couple of colleagues and we got together, thought, look, we can make a business plan and make a play to these manufacturers, set up a niche company, which was Apex Scientific, to represent those companies in the Irish market.
Great. And by all accounts, that was very successful very quickly. You established a good presence in the Irish market.
Yeah, I suppose there was a presence already. Those brands they weren't new brands or new products. They were brands that were required by the biopharma industry in the Irish market. So we just had to basically set up the people, the commercial, the infrastructure, a little bit of warehouse distribution as a small business in the start, which is where we met anyway, I suppose.
Absolutely. But you say that quite casually, Andy, but there's all the ingredients of a business. But you obviously, the team, in particular yourself, Eamon and Suzanne, great team to put that together and build it up.
Well, I suppose we'd learned that from the company that the three of us worked in the same company beforehand. So we'd learned all that stuff over the last 15, 16 years in that business. Yeah.
So then Apex continued to thrive. What was the turning point, or what did you go to sell the business, or did somebody approach you?
No, we were approached. Yeah, so a couple of years ago, we were approached. A letter comes in. It was a formal letter. We're interested in your company. We've had a look at you. We know you. We've got some businesses in our group that also know you. And would you like to open a dialogue about selling your company?
Right.
Hmm.
And you followed up on that. And from that first point of contact to selling the business, roughly how long was that? Because again, if you don't mind me reminding you, this was during COVID. Was this 2020?
Yeah. So it was during COVID. Yeah. I mean, COVID didn't really hit our business. So our Apex Scientific's business is consumables.
Right.
Obviously, people are still getting sick. Babies are being born. Pharmaceutical industry is still going in Ireland. Right. They're still manufacturing drugs. So they're still consuming our supplies into the labs. Right. So we didn't really see any decline. We had normal growth, at least market share or market growth was normal, 5, 6, 7%. We were growing 7, 8, 9%. So it was, above market.
Okay, very good. Having now successfully sold that business, where, you were managing director of it, you're now in a director role, but yet you have people you report to. How are you finding that?
Yeah, it's different. Accountability is different. Reporting's different. Yeah, the financial discipline and the controls they have in place. It's quite different. You don't have let's say the freedom that you have as a private business owner.
Right. But you're very much enjoying it. It's a new challenge.
Yeah, a new challenge. Yeah.
Right.
It's interesting. Yeah.
And just to go back and maybe what did the acquirer see as Apex's USP? Was there a key thing in that, or was it the team or the products or the customers, or what in particular were they attracted to?
Yeah, well, so the group, Arch Sciences, was a group of 3 companies in the UK doing very similar things to us. They'd got no Irish footprint. I suppose they'd come looking to us because we were deemed to be dominant position, holding strong market share, probably 20-25% market share. They needed to get footprint. They're owned by private equity. Private equity is not going to do a greenfield setup. They go by acquisition. So I think definitely the people that we were known to them, or I was known to them. The products that we sell, the manufacturers that we sell, they're very similar in both the UK and Ireland. Right. So it was a perfect fit for them.
Very good. Yeah. Very, very fortunate for both of you, it seems.
Yeah.
Like it's been a success story for yourselves, and
the
business has grown again since the acquisition.
Yeah.
Very good. I see and am aware you provide training for your customers. Is that strange in your marketplace, and what's the purpose of that, or how big a portion of your business is that?
So it's a small portion of our business. It's probably less than 10%, but it's not abnormal. It's normal. I suppose people in our space, we sell technical products to lab technicians, to scientists. So the product needs support. They're running instrumentation, they're running software. There's lots of different chemical conditions going on, and these lab technicians need to be trained, shown how to use the systems, how to use the software, how to use the consumables, what happens if it goes wrong. There's lots of method development, lots of troubleshooting. So we offer all kinds of courses in method development, troubleshooting.
Very good. So you're really a good technical reference point and support for your customers as well. You're not just box shifting.
Yeah, no, everything's very, the marketplace, it's compliant, validation's key, calibration's key, GMP, FDA regulations. You're all in a controlled environment. The users have to be trained.
Right.
So, you can't allow an untrained user to run a £100,000 instrument and produce results if they don't know what they're doing. Yeah.
Very good. Looking back, and you're by no means finished your career, but to date, what's been your greatest career achievement?
So I suppose I've always been a salesman. I had a role as a European sales director, and I was responsible for the biopharma customers across Europe. And one of the big customers was Sanofi Aventis. So we spent a couple of years, working with them, negotiating with them. And, it was a tens of $1 million transaction over 3 years where we became the preferred supplier to Sanofi. So that was my single biggest transaction.
And dare I ask, back in that time and that environment, was that a 6 months negotiation process to secure the deal?
Oh, a bit longer, probably 6 to 12 months. Yeah, negotiating with French guys, German guys, and procurement guys.
Takes a lot of patience.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, and an application.
Yeah.
Very good. Well done. Looking back on your career, what advice would you now give your 18-year-old self starting off as that laboratory technician, or indeed before that, or what advice could you give?
Well, I suppose, absorb, listen, learn, take in the stuff, become, as knowledgeable as you can about whatever it is you're interested in. That was my thing. I always felt I was as good as anybody about the technique. I was as good as anybody in the competition. Make sure you know your competition, absorb all the information, get the qualifications done, and then, watch and learn. I also, we didn't touch it, but also having a mentor was also, if you see somebody that you like and respect, and they're good, watch them, listen, learn.
And did you find a mentor?
I did have in Ireland I had the business owner in Ireland when I first started. There was a guy who was private company, entrepreneurial, very good guy, lots of good ideas, lots of good vision.
And you learned from him.
Yeah, definitely.
It's brilliant to do, It's brilliant to, and looking back, you only realise that perhaps.
You don't, when you're younger, you don't realise it, but if, it's,
yeah.
He used to say to me, you've 2 ears and 1 mouth.
Yeah, so use them in proportion.
Yeah.
What's your mentor's name?
So it's a guy called Joe Rowley. He was the kind of one of the principals and founders of AGB, the company that first hired me when I came to Ireland.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so AGB is a huge company now, and Joe was a founder of that.
Yeah, well, it's not, that brand's gone now because they were acquired by the Global Lab Supply we talked about earlier on. Okay. So that brand's gone. The company is there, right. But they've relocated, they've expanded, and they're long gone. That was back in 2005 or 6.
What did you learn from that mentor? What things stick out in your mind now, 20, 30 years on?
Well, he was very good at building relationships with the suppliers and manufacturers and customers. He was good at both the business and the social aspect of it. He understood that people had personal lives as well as business lives, and he was a scientist, so he knew a lot about technology and science, but he also knew a lot about the industry and the marketplace. So that was his whole thing, being able to see opportunities, identify opportunities with the customers, and then realize that there was a product opportunity. And we used to travel to the US, and we used to go to Germany and all these trade shows around the world to identify, looking for products that would fit the pharmaceutical market in Ireland. And we'd go and set up shop and attract these manufacturers to come and do business with us and distribute for them in the Irish market. So a lot of that whole building relationships with suppliers and customers, identifying products, identifying markets. That's what stuck with me.
Yeah, no, I think it's fantastic to learn. As a young person, you look at these old people and what would they know? But in actual fact, they've life experiences, career experience, a lot. Very, very good. What's the biggest challenge you're currently facing?
Yeah, so I suppose they call it integration. These PEs or venture capital guys, they make an acquisition, and now you've got to integrate that acquisition into their business. So we're a smaller company going into a larger company. So we've got to get on their IT systems, in their finance systems, make sure payroll is right, HR is right, pensions are right. We use a CRM system which is different to theirs. So all of the commercial customer knowledge, customer information, we've got to kind of get that organized and migrated into their system. So that you need a lot of IT support, and so with that's kind of distracting, consuming, but it's you got to get through it.
You've hit on something very interesting there. You've mentioned several times relationships, right? Looking back over the last 2 years, so much has gone virtual, and in your company's role selling to customers, do you feel that relationships have been weakened, or indeed are you putting an ethos back into business, get out there and meet the customers, or what's happening?
Yeah, I suppose we've been able to get through using Teams and all the rest of it, but there's a lot of touch and feel to our products. You've got to get in front of people, and we are trying to aggressively get that activity back. I mean, it didn't negatively impact because the customer also expect you to just deal with them over the computer.
Sure.
And now it's starting to open up. We're probably only at 30-40% of the call rate face to face.
But you see it, and as a policy, you'd see that as coming back, and that's critical to the business.
Yeah, you would ask yourself questions though. Do I need all these reps with these company cars and phones and laptops? And my business didn't tank. Yeah. So you're starting to question yourself: is it a different model? Is it a different business model? Is it a different type of person that can actually? But physically, if you've got a product, you can't touch the product and see the product and see the quality of a product.
Sure. I think the danger would be if you tried to change policy and it didn't work out, and in 18 months' time you said this is wrong, you may never recover it. So
get it back. Yeah, it's always more difficult to recover it. Yeah.
So again, going back to the 2 years and COVID, had you challenges there specifically to supply chain, or it seems that you had sufficient product to supply your customers. Had you any supply chain problems?
No. I think our supply partners, their business went through the roof because everybody was buying online, as you know. So I don't think the supply chain, getting product into Ireland wasn't the problem. We had more of a problem with Brexit than we did with COVID. Okay. And the change in restrictions for even products that we didn't buy in the UK were actually coming from Germany, but they through the UK. Yeah. So the administrative paperwork side and the extra little bit of cost and time, that slowed us a bit. Sure. But we stocked up the month before and made sure we had, kind of get us through that window.
Brexit has been a total disaster for an awful lot of companies in Ireland, and it's added 3 months stock holding onto many of our clients. Added a month on, 6 weeks on to the supply chain. It's been a very challenging time, and I think the Irish economy's done really well to get over this. Yeah, it's been pretty good. Indeed, in COVID, nearly everybody now is a household expert in your sector, and knows the names of all these different companies. But again, it's been an interesting 2 years.
Yeah.
Speaking of people, and we mentioned Eamon and Suzanne, and there's James and a few other key people there. Have you managed to retain everybody who was with Apex?
Yeah. Nobody's moved on.
That's
all happy. Yeah.
That's testimony to the transition. So that's
really and it's an important part. I think that's where when you're a business owner, like that whole, the loyalty to the people you have. You want to make sure that they're all secured and safe, and that they've got longevity in the next generation. Yeah.
And personally, you're slotting into the larger type organization again. You're finding that okay?
Yeah, it's okay. It's the financial rhythm and the reporting and their demand for data and information is much higher. As a private business guy, deadlines, and private business guys, you don't worry about day to day, week to week, but these got margin analysis, data, finance, and banking. They're consumed by it because they're under, again, I suppose, pressure from their PE and their.
And would you have a strict reporting deadline? Is it 3-day month-end close, or 5 or 7?
Month-end, yeah. Everything's got to be, there's a day 3, a day 5, a day 7. Everything's got to be closed out by day 6 or 7 for the previous month.
But you're now in the rhythm of it. You're used to
it. You're getting there, yeah.
It's 2 years on. That's pretty good going. Yeah. That's pretty good going. If you weren't in your current role, where would you like to be? Or indeed, maybe looking at the last couple of years of your career, let's say, is there anything you'd like to tick a box off and try, having been successful already in the bio sector?
I haven't thought a lot about it. I've thought a bit about property development.
Right.
You know, maybe I've had a bit of property over the years. I'm interested in it. I've thought about being a car salesman.
So did I.
Because some of the car salesmen,
Yeah.
I look at them, I meet them, and I think, geez,
Absolutely.
you guys need a few lessons, you know.
Sure. Having bought a new car during COVID and having been handed the key and said, there's the manual, and you can go online and have a look at the manual. Give me a shout if you're stuck. And this was an electric car, first time driving one. It was certainly an experience.
No, I think the quality of the sales guys in car showrooms is not good.
Okay, I think they'll be unemployed until about October, because it seems there's no cars left to sell in Ireland at the moment. Well, very few new cars, you know. It's very difficult to get it. Look, Andy Pepper, thank you very, very much for this afternoon. Thank you. If you want to learn a little more about Guardian, you can go to guardianaccountants.ie, where you'll learn about everything that we can do. If you're enjoying the Guardian Irish Business podcast, please do share it with your friends and colleagues, and don't forget to subscribe, like and review wherever you are listening. Thanks for listening. Until next time.